10 Stoic secrets that instantly expose fake friends and energy vampires. Here's a shocking truth that most people refuse to acknowledge. Nearly 70% of your so-called friends would disappear the moment your life took a serious downturn. That's not pessimism, that's reality. And if you're not prepared to face this brutal fact, you're setting yourself up for devastating emotional damage that could take years to recover from. We live in an age where everyone's collecting friends like social media trophies, but ancient Stoic philosophers understood something we've forgotten. They knew that the quality of your inner circle determines the quality of your entire existence. Marcus Aurelius, who literally ruled an empire, wrote extensively about the energy vampires and fake allies that surrounded him in his court. These toxic individuals didn't just waste his time, they actively tried to drain his mental strength and manipulate his decisions. The Stoics developed powerful techniques to instantly identify these parasitic personalities, and what they discovered will completely change how you view your relationships. They realized that certain behaviors always reveal someone's true intentions, no matter how well they try to hide them. These patterns are so consistent that once you learn to spot them, you'll wonder how you ever missed the red flags before. But here's what makes this even more disturbing. Modern psychology has confirmed that toxic relationships literally rewire your brain, creating stress patterns that can lead to anxiety, depression, and even physical health problems. The people you think are just a little draining might actually be destroying your mental well-being without you even realizing it. The ancient Stoics understood this connection between social environment and inner peace long before scientists could prove it. What you're about to discover are 10 Stoic secrets that will expose every fake friend and energy vampire in your life. These aren't just philosophical concepts. They're practical weapons that will protect your emotional energy and help you build the kind of authentic relationships that actually enhance your existence. By the end of this revelation, you'll have the tools to completely transform your social circle and reclaim control over your mental space. The mirror test, the first Stoic secret, reveals itself through what philosophers call the mirror test, and it's absolutely devastating in its accuracy. Fake friends operate like distorted mirrors. They only reflect your image back to you when it serves their purposes. Watch carefully how people respond when you share good news versus when you're struggling, because this single observation will expose their true nature faster than anything else. Here's how it works in real life. When you get that promotion, win that award, or achieve something significant, fake friends suddenly become your biggest cheerleaders. They're posting about your success on social media, telling everyone how proud they are to know you, and basking in the reflected glory of your achievements. But the moment you face a setback, lose a job, or go through a difficult period, these same people vanish like smoke. They don't return your calls, they're always too busy to meet up, and they certainly don't want to hear about your problems. This behavior isn't accidental, it's calculated. These individuals have learned to identify people who can enhance their social status or provide them with something valuable. They attach themselves to your success because it makes them look good by association. When you're winning, they want to be seen with you. When you're struggling, they distance themselves because your problems might tarnish their image or, even worse, they might be expected to actually help. The ancient Stoics recognized this pattern because it was rampant in Roman society. Wealthy and powerful individuals were constantly surrounded by flatterers and social climbers who disappeared the moment their fortunes changed. Seneca wrote extensively about fair-weather friends who only showed loyalty when it was profitable. He understood that genuine relationships require consistency, especially during difficult times. But here's what makes this even more insidious. These mirror people don't just abandon you during tough times, they actively avoid situations where they might be called upon to provide real support. They'll make excuses, create distance, or suddenly develop their own crises that require all their attention. It's a calculated strategy to maintain the benefits of association without accepting any of the responsibilities of true friendship. The Stoic response to this behavior is both simple and powerful. Observe patterns over time rather than individual incidents. Anyone can be busy once or twice, but consistent unavailability during your difficult moments reveals their true priorities. Real friends show up when showing up is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or offers them no personal benefit. They understand that relationships involve both celebration and support, not just the parts that feel good. Most people ignore these patterns because they want to believe their friends are genuine. But the Stoics knew that self-deception in relationships leads to devastating betrayal. They practiced radical honesty about human nature, acknowledging that many people are primarily motivated by self-interest rather than genuine care. This wasn't cynicism. It was protective wisdom that allowed them to invest their emotional energy in relationships that could actually sustain them through life's inevitable challenges. When you apply the mirror test to your current relationships, you might be shocked by what you discover. But this revelation isn't meant to make you bitter or suspicious of everyone. Instead, it's designed to help you identify the rare individuals who pass this test, because those are the people worthy of your deepest trust and investment. The drama magnet, the second Stoic secret, exposes one of the most dangerous personality types you'll encounter. The drama magnet. These energy vampires have turned personal chaos into an art form, and they're incredibly skilled at pulling others into their endless cycle of manufactured crises. What makes them so dangerous is that they often appear to be the victims of circumstances, when in reality, they're the architects of their own destruction. Drama magnets operate on a simple but devastating principle. They require constant emotional reactions from others to feel alive and important. They've discovered that creating chaos guarantees attention, sympathy, and involvement from the people around them. Every conversation becomes about their latest crisis, every gathering gets hijacked by their urgent problems, and every relationship gets consumed by their need for emotional drama. Here's how to spot them immediately. They always have a crisis that's somehow both urgent and vague. It's always the worst thing that's ever happened to them, but the details keep changing. They're masters of emotional manipulation, using phrases like, "I don't know what I'd do without you," or "You're the only one who understands me," to trap people in their cycle of manufactured emergencies. They create false intimacy through shared drama, making their victims feel special and needed while slowly draining their emotional resources. The ancient Stoics encountered these individuals constantly, especially in the political arena, where manufactured outrage and artificial crises were common tactics for gaining attention and support. Marcus Aurelius wrote about people who seemed to thrive on conflict and chaos, noting that they were fundamentally incompatible with the Stoic pursuit of inner peace and rational thinking. He understood that engaging with their drama only fed their need for more chaos. But here's what's truly disturbing about drama magnets. They're addicted to the stress hormones that come from constant crisis. Scientists now understand that some people become physiologically dependent on the adrenaline and cortisol produced by dramatic situations. They literally can't function in peaceful environments because their bodies crave the chemical rush of chaos. This means they unconsciously sabotage stability and create problems even when everything is going well. Watch how they respond when you try to offer practical solutions to their problems. Genuine people in crisis want help and will appreciate useful advice. Drama magnets will dismiss every solution, explain why nothing will work, or create new complications that make the situation worse. They don't want solutions because solutions end the drama, and ending the drama means losing their primary source of attention and emotional energy from others. The Stoic approach to drama magnets is counterintuitive but incredibly effective. Complete emotional detachment. Don't try to fix their problems, don't get drawn into their emotional reactions, and don't allow their manufactured urgency to disrupt your inner peace. The Stoics understood that you cannot help someone who is fundamentally committed to creating chaos, and attempting to do so only ensures that you become another casualty of their dysfunction. This doesn't mean being cruel or heartless. It means recognizing that drama magnets require professional help, not amateur therapy from their friends and family. By maintaining emotional distance, you protect your own mental health while avoiding the trap of becoming their primary source of validation. Remember, every moment you spend managing their artificial crises is a moment stolen from your own growth and genuine relationships. The most powerful realization about drama magnets is that they reveal themselves through consistency. One dramatic event might be genuine misfortune, but someone who always has a crisis, always has enemies, and always needs rescuing is showing you exactly who they are. The Stoics taught us to believe people's patterns, not their explanations. The fair weather phenomenon, the third Stoic secret, reveals a pattern so common it's become invisible to most people. The fair weather phenomenon. These individuals have perfected the art of conditional loyalty, showing up only when the conditions are perfect for them. They're not necessarily malicious. but their support comes with invisible strings attached that only become apparent when you need them most. Fair weather people are masters of strategic availability. They'll enthusiastically join you for celebrations, success stories, and fun activities, but they develop mysterious scheduling conflicts whenever you're facing real challenges. They're excellent at surface-level friendships that require minimal emotional investment, but provide maximum social benefits. The moment a relationship requires actual sacrifice or inconvenience, they discover urgent priorities elsewhere. What makes this pattern so dangerous is its subtlety. These aren't people who openly abandon you, they're experts at plausible excuses and seemingly valid reasons for their absence. They'll express sympathy for your situation while explaining why they can't actually help. They've learned to maintain the appearance of caring without accepting any of the responsibilities that come with genuine care. The ancient Stoics recognized this behavior because Roman society was built on networks of mutual obligation and support. Politicians, merchants, and citizens all understood that relationships required reciprocity. When someone consistently took benefits without providing support in return, they were quickly identified as unreliable and ultimately excluded from important social circles. The Stoics valued this principle because they understood that authentic relationships required mutual investment. Here's how fair weather people reveal themselves. Pay attention to their availability patterns. When you're doing well, they want to be included in your plans, introduced to your contacts, and associated with your success. But when you're struggling financially, emotionally, or professionally, they suddenly become incredibly busy with their own lives. They'll offer sympathy and encouragement, but never practical help or genuine support. The most revealing test is emergency availability. Real friends will rearrange their schedules for your genuine emergencies. Fair weather people will express concern, but explain why they can't actually change their plans. They've trained themselves to feel good about offering emotional support while avoiding any real inconvenience or sacrifice. This allows them to maintain their self-image as caring people without accepting the obligations of true friendship. But here's what's particularly insidious about this pattern. Fair weather people often become offended when you stop including them in your good times. They expect continued access to your success and happiness while providing nothing during your difficulties. They've convinced themselves that their presence during good times is valuable enough to balance their absence during bad times. This delusion allows them to maintain relationships that are fundamentally one-sided. The Stoic response to fair weather people requires both wisdom and strength. You must learn to distinguish between genuine friendship and social opportunism without becoming bitter or cynical. This means observing behavior patterns over time rather than making judgments based on single incidents. It also means accepting that many relationships are naturally limited in scope and depth, which isn't necessarily a problem if you understand their true nature. The key insight is learning to match your emotional investment to the other person's demonstrated commitment. If someone only shows up for the good times, limit their access to your vulnerable moments and important decisions. Save your deep trust and emotional energy for people who have proven their loyalty during difficult periods. This isn't about punishing fair weather people. It's about protecting yourself from disappointment and ensuring your most valuable relationships receive appropriate investment. Remember, the Stoics taught that wisdom involves understanding reality rather than wishful thinking. Fair weather people serve a purpose in your social ecosystem. They just shouldn't be confused with true friends who will stand by you regardless of circumstances. Once you accept this distinction, you can enjoy their company during good times without feeling betrayed by their absence during challenging periods. The information harvester, the fourth Stoic secret, exposes perhaps the most calculating type of fake friend: the information harvester. These individuals have turned personal conversations into intelligence-gathering operations, collecting your vulnerabilities, secrets, and private struggles not for genuine understanding, but as ammunition for future use. They're emotional pickpockets who steal your trust and use it against you when it serves their purposes. Information harvesters are incredibly skilled at creating false intimacy. They ask probing questions with apparent concern, remember details about your personal life with impressive accuracy, and make you feel heard and understood in ways that few people do. This makes them particularly dangerous because they exploit your natural desire for connection and understanding. By the time you realize what's happening, They've already collected enough information to cause serious damage to your reputation or emotional well-being. Here's how they operate. They position themselves as trustworthy confidants during your vulnerable moments. When you're going through a breakup, family conflict, or professional struggle, they're the ones who seem most interested in hearing every detail. They ask follow-up questions, express sympathy, and make you feel like they truly care about your situation. But they're actually cataloging everything you tell them for potential future use. The ancient Stoics were particularly aware of this behavior, because Roman political life was filled with spies and informants who posed as friends while gathering intelligence for enemies. Seneca wrote extensively about the importance of discretion in personal matters, warning that sharing too much with the wrong people could lead to devastating consequences. He understood that some individuals view other people's secrets as valuable commodities rather than sacred trusts. What makes information harvesters so effective is their ability to weaponize your own words against you. They'll remember exactly what you said about a coworker, family member, or personal struggle, then strategically reveal that information when it benefits them or harms you. They might share your private concerns with mutual friends, use your confessions to undermine your credibility, or leverage your secrets to manipulate your behavior. The most sophisticated information harvesters don't just collect random gossip. They specifically target information that could be embarrassing, damaging, or useful for control. They remember your fears, insecurities, past mistakes, and current vulnerabilities. They pay attention to your relationships, financial situation, career concerns, and personal struggles. This isn't accidental curiosity, it's strategic intelligence gathering. But here's what's particularly disturbing about their methods. They often share your information while pretending to defend you. They'll say things like, "I'm only telling you this because I care about them," or "I think you should know what people are saying." This allows them to spread your private business while maintaining plausible deniability and even appearing concerned about your welfare. The Stoic approach to information harvesters requires developing what philosophers call prudent discretion. This means being extremely selective about what personal information you share and with whom you share it. The Stoics understood that privacy isn't about having something to hide. It's about protecting yourself from people who view your vulnerability as an opportunity for advantage. Start paying attention to how people handle information you've shared with them. Do they keep your confidences private, or do details somehow make their way back to you through other people? When they ask questions about your personal life, are they genuinely trying to understand and support you, or do they seem more interested in collecting details? Trust your instincts about people who seem overly curious about your private affairs. The most powerful protection against information harvesters is what the Stoics called the graduated disclosure principle. Share personal information gradually and pay attention to how it's handled before sharing more sensitive details. People who can't keep small confidences definitely can't be trusted with important ones. This approach allows you to identify trustworthy individuals while protecting yourself from those who would misuse your openness. Remember, genuine friends don't need to know every detail of your private life to care about you. They're satisfied with the level of sharing you're comfortable with and don't pressure you for more information than you're willing to give. Information harvesters, by contrast, always want more details, more context, and more access to your private thoughts and experiences. The comparison trap, the fifth Stoic secret, reveals one of the most toxic relationship patterns. The comparison trap. These individuals have turned every interaction into a subtle competition where your achievements become threats to their self-worth. And their response is to constantly measure, minimize, and compete with everything you accomplish. They can't celebrate others because they view life as a zero-sum game where someone else's success diminishes their own value. Comparison trappers are exhausting to be around because they can't engage with your experiences without immediately making it about themselves. Share good news, and they'll quickly pivot to their own accomplishments or explain why your success isn't as impressive as it seems. Mention a struggle, and they'll either one-up your problems or minimize your challenges by comparing them to worse situations. Every conversation becomes a competition for who has it better or worse. Here's how to identify them instantly. They respond to your achievements with subtle undermining disguised as conversation. Instead of celebrating your promotion, they'll mention how promotions at your company aren't that competitive. Instead of congratulating you on your relationship, they'll point out potential problems or compare it unfavorably to their own situation. They're masters of backhanded compliments that sound supportive but leave you feeling diminished. The ancient Stoics encountered this pattern constantly, especially among the educated and wealthy classes where social status was constantly being negotiated. Marcus Aurelius observed that people who constantly compared themselves to others were fundamentally misunderstanding the nature of human worth and happiness. He recognized that this mindset created unnecessary suffering for both the comparer and their victims. What makes comparison trappers particularly dangerous is that they're often successful, intelligent people who should theoretically be secure in their accomplishments. But they've become addicted to relative success rather than absolute achievement. They can't enjoy their own lives because they're constantly measuring them against others. This creates a toxic dynamic where other people's happiness becomes a source of their own misery. The psychology behind this behavior is actually quite revealing. Comparison trappers have never learned to find intrinsic value in their own experiences and achievements. They require external validation and relative positioning to feel good about themselves. When someone else succeeds, it threatens their carefully constructed sense of superiority, so they must either diminish that success or compete with it immediately. Watch how they respond when you share something you're excited about. Genuine friends will match your energy and celebrate with you. Comparison trappers will either redirect the conversation to their own experiences or find ways to minimize your excitement. They might ask probing questions designed to find flaws in your situation, make comments about how they've had similar experiences, or pivot to discussing their own plans and achievements. The most insidious aspect of comparison trapping is how it gradually erodes your enthusiasm for sharing positive experiences. Over time, you start to dread telling these people about good things happening in your life because you know they'll find ways to diminish your joy. This is emotional abuse disguised as friendship, and it can seriously damage your ability to appreciate your own accomplishments. The Stoic response to comparison trappers is both philosophical and practical. First, understand that their behavior is a reflection of their internal insecurity, not an accurate assessment of your achievements. When someone needs to diminish others to feel good about themselves, they're revealing their own emotional poverty, not exposing problems with your success. Second, limit how much personal information you share with these individuals. They've demonstrated that they can't handle your good news appropriately, so stop giving them opportunities to undermine your happiness. This doesn't mean cutting them off entirely, but it does mean being strategic about what experiences you share with them. The key insight from Stoic philosophy is that genuine contentment comes from internal satisfaction with your own growth and achievements, not from comparison with others. When you truly understand this principle, comparison trappers lose their power to affect you because their opinions become irrelevant to your sense of self-worth. Most importantly, recognize that people who constantly compete with you aren't actually friends in any meaningful sense. Friends celebrate each other's successes because they understand that happiness isn't a limited resource. Comparison trappers reveal themselves as fundamentally self-centered individuals who view relationships as opportunities for validation rather than genuine connection. The boundary bulldozer, the sixth Stoic secret, exposes individuals who have turned boundary violation into an art form. The boundary bulldozer. These people systematically ignore, dismiss, or demolish every limit you try to establish, treating your personal boundaries as suggestions rather than requirements. They're masters of emotional manipulation who use guilt, persistence, and manufactured urgency to override your attempts at self-protection. Boundary bulldozers operate on a simple but devastating principle. They believe their needs and desires automatically override your comfort and well-being. When you say no to their requests, they hear maybe. When you establish limits on your time or energy, they interpret those as challenges to overcome rather than boundaries to respect. They've convinced themselves that persistence is a virtue, even when that persistence becomes harassment. Here's how they reveal themselves immediately. They respond to your boundaries with arguments rather than acceptance. Instead of respecting your no, they want to debate why you should say yes. They'll question your reasons, offer solutions to your objections, and pressure you to reconsider your decision. They treat boundary setting as the opening move in a negotiation rather than a final statement of your position. The ancient Stoics understood boundary violations as a form of disrespect that threatened individual autonomy and dignity. Epictetus, who had personally experienced the complete loss of physical freedom as a slave, wrote extensively about the importance of maintaining psychological boundaries, even when external circumstances were beyond your control. He recognized that allowing others to violate your mental and emotional boundaries was a form of voluntary enslavement. What makes boundary bulldozers particularly dangerous is their ability to make you feel guilty for having boundaries in the first place. They're experts at reframing your self-protection as selfishness, your limits as unreasonable demands, and your need for space as rejection of them personally. They use emotional manipulation to make you question whether you have the right to say no to their requests. Watch how they respond when you establish a clear boundary. They might ignore it completely and continue behaving as if you never spoke. They might acknowledge it verbally but immediately start looking for loopholes and exceptions. Or they might accept it temporarily but return repeatedly to test whether you'll maintain your position or eventually give in to their pressure. The most sophisticated boundary bulldozers use manufactured emergencies to override your limits. They'll create situations where saying no seems cruel or unreasonable, then use those situations to establish precedents for future boundary violations. Once they've gotten you to make one exception, they'll reference that exception to justify ignoring your boundaries in the future. But here's what's particularly insidious about their tactics. They often target people who are naturally helpful, empathetic, or conflict avoidant. They've learned to identify individuals who struggle with saying no and feel guilty about disappointing others. They exploit these positive qualities by making boundary enforcement feel mean or selfish. The Stoic approach to boundary bulldozers requires both philosophical clarity and practical strength. First, understand that boundaries aren't suggestions or starting points for negotiation. They're non-negotiable requirements for healthy relationships. People who can't respect your boundaries are demonstrating that they don't respect you as an autonomous individual. Second, recognize that boundary bulldozers count on your discomfort with conflict to wear down your resistance. They use persistence and pressure because they've learned that many people will eventually give in just to avoid ongoing confrontation. The Stoic response is to become comfortable with their discomfort when you maintain your boundaries. The most powerful technique is what Stoics call the broken record method. Simply repeat your boundary without elaboration, justification, or debate. You don't owe anyone explanations for your personal limits, and attempting to justify your boundaries only gives bulldozers ammunition to argue with your reasoning. Here's a crucial realization. People who truly care about your well-being will respect your boundaries even when they don't understand or agree with them. They'll trust that you know your own needs and limitations better than they do. Boundary bulldozers, by contrast, believe they know what's best for you better than you do, which is fundamentally disrespectful and controlling. Remember, every time you allow someone to bulldoze your boundaries, you're teaching them that your limits don't matter and training them to ignore your future attempts at self-protection. The Stoics understood that allowing boundary violations is ultimately harmful to both parties, because it enables unhealthy relationship dynamics that benefit no one in the long term. The Stoic solution, the final Stoic secret, isn't about identifying toxic people. It's about creating an environment where authentic relationships can flourish while protecting yourself from energy vampires and fake friends. The ancient philosophers understood that the quality of your social environment directly determines the quality of your inner life, and they developed specific strategies for cultivating relationships that enhance rather than drain your existence. The foundation of the Stoic approach is what Marcus Aurelius called selective association. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or suspicious of everyone you meet. Instead, it means being intentional about where you invest your emotional energy and social time. Just as you wouldn't put low-quality fuel in an expensive car, you shouldn't allow low-quality relationships to contaminate your mental space. Start by conducting what Stoics call a relationship audit. Look at your current social circle and honestly assess how each relationship affects your mental state, energy levels, and personal growth. Some people leave you feeling inspired, supported, and energized after spending time with them. Others leave you feeling drained, frustrated, or diminished. The difference isn't coincidental. It's revealing essential information about the nature of those relationships. The Stoic principle of emotional reciprocity helps guide this evaluation. Healthy relationships involve a natural flow of giving and receiving support, encouragement, and genuine care. Toxic relationships are characterized by consistent imbalances where one person takes significantly more than they give. This doesn't mean keeping score of every interaction, but it does mean recognizing patterns of exploitation or neglect. Here's what authentic relationships look like according to Stoic philosophy. They're based on mutual respect for each other's autonomy and boundaries. Both people feel free to be honest about their thoughts and feelings without fear of manipulation or retaliation. There's consistent support during both good times and challenging periods. Most importantly, these relationships enhance each person's ability to live according to their values rather than compromising their integrity. The process of building authentic relationships starts with becoming the kind of person you want to attract. Stoicism teaches that we draw people into our lives who match our own emotional and spiritual development. If you want loyal friends, demonstrate loyalty. If you want honest communication, practice radical honesty yourself. If you want supportive relationships, become genuinely supportive of others. But here's the crucial insight that most people miss. Building authentic relationships requires the courage to disappoint inauthentic people. When you start setting boundaries, refusing to participate in drama, and limiting access to your emotional energy, some people will be upset by these changes. Their negative reactions actually confirm that they were primarily interested in what they could take from you rather than what they could give. The Stoic concept of relationship seasons acknowledges that not all relationships are meant to last forever, and that's perfectly natural. Some people serve important purposes during specific periods of your life, but aren't meant to be permanent fixtures. Others represent lifelong connections that deepen and strengthen over time. Wisdom involves understanding which is which and responding appropriately. Creating boundaries around your social energy isn't selfish. It's essential for maintaining the emotional resources necessary to show up fully for the relationships that truly matter. Think of your emotional energy as a finite resource that requires strategic allocation. Wasting it on people who don't value or reciprocate that investment leaves you depleted when genuine friends need your support. The most powerful Stoic technique for relationship building is what philosophers call authentic presence. This means showing up fully in your interactions without pretense, manipulation, or hidden agendas. When you consistently demonstrate genuine interest in others without expecting anything in return, you naturally attract people who appreciate and reciprocate that authenticity. Remember, the goal isn't to have the most friends or the busiest social calendar. The goal is to cultivate relationships that support your growth as a person while allowing you to contribute meaningfully to others' lives. Quality relationships require time, energy, and emotional investment that becomes impossible when you're spread too thin across too many superficial connections. The ancient Stoics understood that solitude is preferable to toxic company. They weren't advocating for isolation, but they recognized that being alone is psychologically healthier than being surrounded by people who drain your energy or compromise your values. This perspective gives you the strength to make difficult decisions about relationships that aren't serving your highest good. As you implement these Stoic principles, you'll notice a profound shift in your social experience. Drama decreases, genuine connection increases, and you'll find yourself surrounded by people who enhance rather than diminish your life. This isn't about becoming perfect or expecting perfection from others. It's about creating an environment where authentic relationships can thrive. The ultimate Stoic secret is that protecting your inner peace isn't just about avoiding toxic people. It's about actively cultivating relationships that inspire you to become the best version of yourself. When you surround yourself with people who share your commitment to growth, integrity, and genuine connection, you create a social environment that supports your highest aspirations rather than dragging you down to the lowest common denominator. Your inner circle should be composed of people who challenge you to grow, support you during difficulties, celebrate your successes without jealousy, and respect your boundaries without argument. These relationships become a source of strength that sustains you through life's inevitable challenges while amplifying your joy during good times. This is the true power of Stoic relationship principles. They don't just protect you from harmful people, they help you create connections that make life genuinely fulfilling.